In class, we are given a plane equation and we learn how to rid of a vector that is normal to this plane. And then later on, we also learn how to find the points of intersection of this plane with those three major axes. And then we also learn how to find the point of intersection of a given line and the given plane. So now we want to look at what this plane intersects those three major axes. So when A intersects, say, XY plane, what would it look like? So let's take a look at the graph. So let's take a look at a graph. So here we have the XY plane in the gray. This gray sheet of plane is the XY plane. X is labeled in red, Y is in green, Z is in blue. And you do see that the intersection actually is a straight line, right? A plane intersects XY is a straight line. And how do we find this straight line? And let's take a look at what has to be true for all the points on this straight line. For all the points on this straight line, it must satisfy all those points. They must satisfy the plane equation at the same time. They must satisfy these two plane equations. One is the XY plane, which is z equals 0. The other one is the plane equation that we are given. So how do we find this equation? Simply, let's go back here. Simply set z to 0 because all the points on this plane must also satisfy this particular property. In other words, so I'm going to let z be 0 in the plane equation. So I don't have any z because I set it to 0 equals 15. So this is a line equation provided this is true, z equals 0. Please note that if you don't have this z equals 0 condition, just look at this equation. This actually is a plane that is parallel to z-axis. But now with z equals 0, this is just a straight line. So hopefully you now know why I mentioned the purpose of this problem is to identify the distinction between equation of a line and a plane. So with this condition z equals 0, this is the equation of a line. Without this z equals 0, suppose you ignore this one, and this means, hey, this is an equation that can work for any z value. So it would be a plane that is parallel to z-axis. Okay, so now how do we find the intersection of plane A and YZ plane? You simply set x to 0 in this case. So you get 3y minus z equals 15, and this again is a straight line. Okay, straight line. And what makes it a straight line? X equals 0 makes it a straight line instead of a plane. Similarly, for the very last one, you set y to 0 and you get negative 5x minus z equals 15. This is again a line equation. So to visualize these three lines, let's go back to the graph. So this graph shows you the line, the plane intersects with xy plane. So I can certainly highlight. Let me see. Okay, now, so I put the. So now the shaded plane with those grids, that's the x equals 0, which means the YZ plane and take a look at the graph where this plane intersects this YZ plane. So this actually is the line, right? This is the line, okay? So this is the line equation that we just found by setting x to 0. So how about the intersection of the plane and the y equals 0? Okay, now I set the y equals 0, which is, so this is y equals 0, and therefore what you see here now is actually the intersection of the plane and the the plane A and the xz plane, which means y equals 0. So this is the intersection, okay? So you can visualize those three intersections by highlighting those planes, like set y equals 0, x equals 0, and you can visualize that.